So you are able to see the screen, right? So last class, so started, of course, previous itself we have started, you see, how to design the beams. And then last class, I told you the steps involved, okay? So like you see, service load, you find out maximum bending moment, shear force diagrams you have to draw and take the maximum values. Then you have to do a trial, the section modulus. So this is the most important design variable. That is a plastic section modulus, okay? So this has to be estimated approximately, So once that is done, so you go to steel tables or backside of any textbooks. So they will give you all these things. So you select a corresponding, I section or whatever you want. So then you have to classify the section, because if you don't classify, say, then the bending capacity formula changes for plastic and semi-compact slender, say. So it changes. So that has to be done. Then you find out the shear capacity, which is very easy. Shear is carried by the web. And then if it is less than 0.6 times low shear, and if it is more than, then it is a high shear. So obviously you see the value, the decreases actually, okay? So then these are the formulas you see given in the code. So you find out the bending capacity, then this is a serviceability check you just hear itself. Then this is a design bending strength for high shear case. Then this buckling is a very important thing, okay? These are local failures basically. So if d by t is less than 67, then no shear. Of course, generally in all the beam designs, say this will never happen, the shear buckling, okay? Most this one, but generally we do this one. And if it is low shear case, then no need to do web buckling actually, okay? So already I told you in the last class, only in the case of high shear only you have to check this web buckling, otherwise not required also. So this is very straightforward. So this 45-degree angle you take. So web buckling is generally done at the diagonals, okay? Because the buckling happens main thing at the diagonal itself, okay? So you find out B, and then B into TW will give the area, and you will get the force, and it should be more than the shear force. Then you have to do for this web bearing or web crippling. Some textbooks write as bearing, some textbooks we can call as crippling also, okay? So this also you have to do at the support as well as at the concentrated load. So this is a formula, right, given in the code, and 1:2, and this is generally we take near the junction, that is the flange and the web, say. Here only there is a chance of crippling, so here only you have to take the width and you have to check the thing. And finally, say the deflection has to be verified, like L by 300. The formulas for UDL, whatever you have studied from mechanics and the structure analysis. Say you calculate deflection, it should be less than this limit itself. So these are all straightforward steps. If it is laterally unsupported, then you have to do this lateral torsional buckling and other things that you have to do it, okay? So we start, and these are some formulas, not required. You can easily derive yourself, but if you want for a quick reference, say, so you can use these formulas for I sections. Okay, so very easy, straightforward formulas. So I explained you this problem, that is low shear case. How do we calculate? It is very easy. So here web buckling check is not at all required. So just only web crippling only is sufficient. And I think, you do all the calculations, you get your safety. Okay. Now the next problem say was here. So it was a laterally only. Okay. So which means there is no chance of lateral torsional buckling. Then effective span is 6 meter, and then they have given you directly the bending moment and shear force. And they say check for deflection is not required, because he has not mentioned you what type of load it is. If it is a UDL or a concentrated, then you can do. If it is not, say, then it will be it is a, you cannot calculate the deflections also. Okay. So anyway, so these steps I hope all of you have understood. So here this problem, it is a high shear case actually. V is greater than 0.6 times VD. So obviously this is the design, the bending strength. If it was low shear case, say, it would have been simply MdZp by Fy by gamma m0 193. So now it has been reduced actually slightly, because your 0.6 times Vd is 204. The shear force is how much is the shear force? 210 kilonewton. Okay, so 0.6 times Vd is 204. So the shear force is a 210. You see, it is very, you followed, right? Marginal actually. So if you see this curve, say, this one, so 0.6 times VP maybe, somewhere you see here, and this is not 0.210 and very, small. So small, decrease only will be. That's why you see we got 190 and then you see 193. Okay, so this is how you see that's very small reduction in the bending capacity of the beam. Okay, so now once it is done, say now we will proceed to the next step. Now, let me just rotate. Yes, okay, so now I see we have calculated your MdV. So this is a design bending capacity as 190 0.57 kilonewton meter. And what is the maximum bending moment which is coming on the beam? So this is the capacity. What is the bending moment which is coming on the beam? See here. Now what is the value?
150.
So what is your comment? Is it safe or unsafe? No. It is safe only. Okay, the bending capacity. Now we have to check that serviceability. Okay, since it is a simply supported beam, say it should be less than 1.2 times ZT Fi by gamma m naught. If it is a cantilever, say you have to use 1.5. The other the formula. So substitute all those things. So 1.2 into 750, 1.9. So this is the elastic section model. So this is also a design variable. Okay, so 1.1 into these are all straightforward. Okay, so this turns out to be 205.06 kilonewton meter. So which means so your MdV say, so this is also less than this one. So everything is perfectly fine actually. Okay, so this step also it has passed. So now we have checked the bending capacity, we have checked the shear capacity. Now what is the next step? See, bending capacity is done, shear capacity is done. What is the next step? Now you have to check for what mode of failure?
Buckling.
Local failures. Okay, so now whether here you have to do web buckling, whether you have to check or not. See the criteria for web buckling say, so this d by t should be less than 67 times epsilon. Now in this problem d by t, when we did the section classification, say your d by t was 39.9 actual. Okay, so which is less than this 684 is for that one, it should less than 67 basically. Okay, so now whether this web can whether this beam will buckle in a shear buckling is possible. See d by t is 39.9. You followed, right? So this is a 39. So which is anyway less than 67. So shear buckling is possible or not? Web shear buckling.
No, sir.
So no shear. And I told you, right? This is not. It never happens actually for beams. For plate girders it happens, but not in the beams. But here web buckling you have to check, or you don't. No need to check. What our IS code says. What the code says, whether although this criteria, whether web buckling it doesn't satisfy also, no need to do web buckling. But what our code clearly mentions, now you have seen this class, right? Previous class I showed you. Now what does this class? Sorry, where is that? What does our class says? Now see the web, if d by t, if it is less than 16, say the web is generally considered to be safe in the web buckling. Okay, and the shear strength of the web is governed by the plastic shearers. However, in case of high shear, you followed, right? In the case of high shear, even if this limit is satisfied, the web should be checked for buckling actually. Okay, so now in this problem, so whether you have to do this or not. In the previous problem it was low shear, so we ignored it actually. Okay, so now here what is your, what we have to do, whether you have to do or not? No.
We have to do, sir.
So it is required here in this problem. Okay, so this you have to verify. So because it is a high shear, say, so you have to write also when you do the design problem. So web buckling is compulsory because it is mentioned in the code, although your d by t is less than 67. Okay, and now here where to check the web buckling in the beam? So under the load or near the supports. See what type of load it is. See where you have to do the web buckling. You see the previous problem, what happened was it was a simply supported the uniform distributed load they have mentioned. Okay, so when it is UDL, say, so this web buckling or the web crippling, this happens only the concentrated loads. So concentrated load means are near the supports, where because near the supports also you have a reaction actual. So it is also more or less like a concentrated load. So there only you have to check. So in the previous problem, what we did was, because the load is UDL, say, no need to check this web crippling or web buckling under the load, because it is not a concentrated load. So, but only thing was we have to check near the support. So that is how we did for the previous problem. And now this problem, what you will do, like this type of problem has been given, say, what you will do. So they have not given you the type of the load. They have simply mentioned you the bending moment and the maximum value actual. Okay, so generally you see this type of problems, if they mention, you do under the load, because they have not mentioned the type of the load, say. So you have to check where you have to check this web buckling, which point, because you don't know the type of the load. So what is that you will do?
It supports.
So you just check near the supports itself. That is how we have to do. Generally, all beams say dead load or live load you follow, right? It is all UDL only. So you can just check it near the supports. So this is the most important thing. Now here, what is the most important thing when you want to check near the support? So this is my beam, say my I beam. So this is my I section. So near the support. And now what did we say near the support? Now what you should assume? Now what is that you have to assume near the support? Now you remember that figure also. Now, so you have to assume this bearing, this width actually. Okay, the bearing plate has to be mentioned. Now what is the width of the bearing plate? So this has to be assumed, that B or whatever you say, the bearing plate, the width has to be assumed actually, or bearing length or whatever say. Okay, so this width has to be assumed. Now, so how much should be the bearing plate width? How much we take? See, they don't mention in the problems, but from practice say, now, so if you want to increase the buckling strength, what you should do? See that formula, it depends on area here. That is B times whatever that area. So B times thickness or whatever you have. So if B is more, say, what happens to the buckling strength?
Increases.
It increases. Okay. So if it doesn't pass, you can increase the bearing length of the beam itself. So generally the bearing plates, what is the width of the bearing plates generally we take in practice? Last class I told you what is the guideline, the thumb rule we use. How much you should take?
75 or 100.
How much?
75 or 100.
75 to 100. Suppose if it is failing, say, you increase the bearing length actually. Or sometimes this bearing plate, some problems say. So they will mention that, this I-beam is resting on some RCC column, or maybe some masonry wall, or maybe some other steel member like that they mention. Okay. So if it is resting on some other, the thing say. So like for example, so let us say it is resting on another, the I-beam like this actually. So now if you want to find out the bearing, this one says, so you can take width of the flange itself as you see the bearing, or sometimes if it is resting on a wall, say, whatever is the width of the wall, that itself is your bearing, this one. Suppose if nothing you mentioned, say, you can assume any value between 75 mm to 100 mm. Okay, so for this problem, let us say we assume it to be 100 mm actual. Okay. So the area of the bearing plate says, so now you have to find out B1 into T1. So you have to find out at the diagonal actual. Okay. So this is a diagonal all of, it is a 45 degrees angle. So you can easily calculate the width and other things. Okay. So that turns out to be, so B plus X or whatever. So this is the width. So this small portion, say, which we are calling as X. So that is at the diagonal you have to find out, multiplied by thickness of the web. So thickness of the web here is 7.4. So that easily you can find out. So this turns out to be, you see, 100 is the bearing. Then this X, which is the extra due to that 45 degrees angle, say, this turns out to be 175 into 7.4, say. So this turns out to be 2035, you see, square. So now, so this is our area. So now effective length of the web you have to find out, because the column is, we are designing as this web is designing as a column. So effective length of the web, say. Now what is the effective length of the web? See, previously we have already said. Okay, so web is behaves as a column basically. Okay, so what value we should take the effective length of the web? Now previously we mentioned you, right? Now, so what is effective length of the web? So generally where this happens, see this buckling, so like already we discussed, right? So where it happens, the diagonal, where was that slide? See the diagonal compression or whatever it will be. So generally you see the diagonal. So this is your beam say. So obviously the shear will be maximum here. So generally you follow, right? So we take as d times root 2. And if you assume that if it is a fixed say, so this web is fixed, that is near this flange and this flange actual, okay, the junction between web and this one, if you assume as a fixed kind of thing say, so finally you see the effective length turns out to be d by the root 2, okay. So this d by root 2 we take here. So d by root 2 is anyway some 0.7 times or whatever you see it turns out to be, okay. So here also you see the effective length of, assuming you see the web is the fixed basically. So the web is fixed, okay. So due to the flanges, restraints or something. So if it is not fixed, you have to assume something here, okay. So based on that, say you can take the, the effective length of the web. So if it is a fixed say, then it turns out to be 0.7 times d. So this 0.7 into is 295.2. So this turns out to be 206.64 mm. So this is the effective length of the web actually, KL, okay. So you are checking for the diagonal. So this is effective length. So this diagonal is d times root 2, and we are assuming that it is a fixed actual, this side and this side actual. So this turns out to be for fixed end it is a half or something. So this turns out to be d by root 2. So d by root 2 anyway is 0.7 times 0.70 something, you see it turns out to be. So now the moment of inertia you have to find out, okay. So bh cube by 12. So as a rectangular flat or whatever, so this 100 into 7.4 cube by 12. So this also you calculate. So 3376.86 mm to the power of 4. Effective area also we know of the web. So near the junction, that is b times tw. So 100 into 7.4. So this is 740 mm square. And now you find out the radius of gyration actual, okay. So this a effective by, sorry, this I effective. So this I effective by a effective. So radius of gyration you find out. So this turns out to be 2.136 the mm. So the slenderness ratio say. So the slenderness ratio you find out. So lambda is KL by R. So this turns out to be 206.64 by 2.136. So this is 96.7415. Okay. So now you have to go to the column curves actual. So for slenderness ratio 96.7415, and then yield strength is of the web say is 250 Newton per mm square, and you have to see which buckling curve for web in the columns. We told, right, previous classes. So which buckling curve we have to use for columns? We have 4 buckling curves, A, B, C, and D. Which buckling curve has to be used? So now we have to go for the column curves. So the column curves, which curve we have to use for this web buckling? We remember. So we have already told you, right? Where is it? So now plastic this one. So where we have mentioned this previously we have written, right? I think previous slide. So which buckling curve we have to use? So this is a design compressive strength corresponding to the assumed way according to the buckling curve. Now which curve you have to see? Now which buckling curve we have to use? And you see this one? So C buckling curve has to be used at. So web is also like a column. Okay. So you find out the slenderness ratio. So you go to your compression curve, those tables basically. Okay. So that curves if you go, so you would see the buckling curve C. So this is a guideline given by the code. So buckling curve C. So from that table you remember. So you get this one and you get your design compressive stress as 111.55 Newton per mm square. So if you don't want, say, you can use that formulas also, and you have to assume that imperfection is a buckling curve C kind of thing itself. So now the capacity, say, of the web. So the capacity of the web, you see, so the area into so 2035 is its area, multiplied by 111.55 into 10 to the power of minus 3. So this turns out to be 227.00 kilonewtons. Now this should be more than what is the shear force here which is acting on the beam? What is the maximum shear force? See what is the maximum shear force which is coming on the beam?
210.
So now what is your comment? So whether web will buckle or not? It is safe or unsafe?
Safe.
Suppose if it turns out to be unsafe, what you will do? Suppose if it is turned out to be unsafe, say, what is that you have to do? So you will change the whole section and you will do the problem from the starting. Instead of ISLB 350, say, you take some other thing, or you know what is that you can do here? See, suppose you want to all steps it has passed. Here, if it is failing, say, now what is that you will try to do? So if you want to increase this value, say, what is it you can do? Which is in your hand?
Sir, B.
Excellent. So B is in your hand actually. Okay. So this you can try. Okay. So this B is in your hand, the bearing, whatever. So this you can slightly, if there is a chance, say, to alter this value, so you can just check this value itself. Okay. So this way, so this web buckling is done. Okay. Now we have to do for the web crippling, basically web crippling or web bearing. So both are the same. So same formula, everything same. Only thing is now 45 degrees angles. And now we have to use that 1:2.5 or whatever. So for the crippling. So B plus N1. So this also where you have to check near the load or near the support. So web crippling where it will happen for this problem, near support or load?
Support.
Because the load, they have not mentioned, right? So if they are not mentioned, means it is generally a UDL kind of thing only. Okay, so you have to check near the supports. So only thing is N1 is 2.5, that is a slope here. Okay, so TF plus R1, that is the root or whatever this one. So 2.5 into 11.4 thickness of the flange plus the root, that rolled section. So 68.5 mm. Okay, now bearing is anyway 100 mm. Because you can't use here one value, there some other value, because you are checking at the support only. So obviously B has to be same. Okay, so FW say, so this is so 100 plus 68.5 multiplied by 7.4, 250 by 1.1 into 10 to the power of minus 3. So finally this turns out to be 283.38 kilonewtons. So this is also greater than 210 kilonewton actually. Okay, so now suppose like if somebody asks you, if I increase the shear forces, some accidentally, if I increase the shear force actually, okay, the shear force increases, and whether what happens to web actually? So whether web will cripple or web will buckle. This is the buckling strength of the web actually, 227. Okay, the crippling is 283. Now slightly if the load is increased or some accidental if the shear force increases, how this thing will fail? It will fail by web buckling or it will fail by web crippling?
Web buckling.
Because the web buckling is only 227. But to web to cripple, so you require much more higher, the value itself. Okay, so that's how you see the, you have to check all these steps. So if it is, high shear case, say, so then buckling also you have to check. This also you have to check. So all these steps have to be checked actually. Okay, so now let us see one more problem on lateral torsional buckling. Okay, so how do we solve this type of problem? It's very, very easy, very easy. Just you can use the tables or formula or whatever you can see. So this is a laterally unsupported beam. Okay, the problem will be like this: laterally unsupported. If they mention, so that means there are no restraints for this beam itself. Okay, so now the data has been given. Span is 4 meters. then my bending moment, maximum shear force they have given you, and of course steel also, everything has been provided to you. Okay, so now we have to do the all the calculations. So now so the lateral torsional buckling say, so you have to find out, so nothing has been mentioned. Okay, so if the thing you assume it to be simply supported say. Okay, so you whatever you can, because the simply supported only, the table is there, but for cantilever say another table, the code gives. So now there you have to find out the the effective length or whatever this one. The simplest case is now. So if you see our IS code say, I think we already right now. So if you see that restraints right now. So where was that restraint thing? For the lateral torsional buckling, we had one table right. This is the restraints. Now, so you can see right. So now here the restraints say, see there are to find out this effective length or whatever. So you can see torsional restraint is fully restrained, warping actually. Both of them are fully restrained. Then if it is a normal case, then you have a destabilizing case also. So you have to be very, very clearly mentioned. So if there is nothing is mentioned in the problem, say you can take whatever value you please mention. So now you see, so now in this problem say, okay, so we are assuming torsional restraint as you see fully restrained, warping is not restrained at the flanges actually. So now when you don't restrain say, what happens? So you remember, right? If you are having a beam say, like for example, you see, if I have a some iron whatever flat is there say, okay. So if I increase the temperature, what happens to stress inside this iron flat? It's a free iron flat which is resting. If I increase the temperature, say, what happens to the stresses in this iron flat?
Increase.
Stress, it is free. You follow, right? It is just lying. So if I increase the temperature, what happens to its stress?
Nothing, sir.
No, because you are not restraining anything. Strain will not be zero. It will expand, that delta L by L or whatever. Strain will be non-zero, but stress will be zero. But the same iron flat say, okay, if I restrain, then what happens? Then increase the temperature. Now what happens?
Stress develop.
Stress, but strain will be zero because you have restraint. So same thing here also. So if I restrain something, say torsional stress will get developed. If I don't restrain, say there will be no warping stress actual. Okay, so this you have, this table is very, very, you followed it. Based on this table you have to choose it. So if nothing is mentioned in the problem, say, so all of you can check whatever thing you like, but you please mention at the type of the problem. In the starting itself you mentioned I am assuming fully restrained by warping this one. So that is why we have taken as 0.7 L say. That is perfectly fine. And then you also have to mention the destabilizing case or whether you are solving for the normal case. If generally nothing is mentioned, say, okay, we assume the loads have to be normal only. Destabilizing means the load is acting at the the top of the flange actually. Okay, so generally we take. So now among all these values, okay, you can take any value you like, but you have to clearly mention what you are using in the problem. So this problem we will take the easiest case. That means 1 times L, so that there is no need to do any simple calculations. Okay, so that means torsion it is a fully restrained, but warping is not restrained at the flanges. So the beam has it can move, the flanges can happily, no restraint is there, so they can do whatever they like actually. Okay, so we take it to be 1 times L. You can take 0.7 also, but please mention at the starting of the problem what you are doing if nothing is mentioned. Okay. So this problem, you see, we take it to be, you see, one easy case. But you know what do you mean by 1 times here? Oh, sorry. So we take L is equal to K times L. So that means it's 4 times this one. So this is 4,000, the meter actual. Okay. Now the imperfection factor also they have not mentioned. So that also is in our hand actual. Okay. Whether it is a rolled section or whether it is a welded section. And now once this is done, now we have to find out the plastic section modulus required. Now, so we told, right, what is the this formula m times gamma m naught by f times y. But since it is a lateral torsional buckling say, so this has to be increased by 25 to 50%, somewhere around these two. Okay, so for this problem we assume it to be 130% increase. So you do all the calculations. So this turns out to be 3146 into, you say, 10 cube cube. So this is a plastic section modulus. So we have increased by 30%. Any value you can take from 25 to 50%. Okay, so now for this you see the steel tables and then the back side of the textbook, so we select this section ISMB 600. So it satisfies this plastic section model. So you copy all the details. So depth of the section is 600, then width of the flange say is a 210, then thickness of the flange, okay, is a 20.8, then the thickness of the web, this is a 12 mm, radius at the root. Okay, so this is required for web crippling. Okay, so depth of the web, so this also is very important, the depth of the web, because d by t, we do the shear buckling calculations. 2 into thickness of the flange subtract, and then the root also if you subtract, so this turns out to be 518.4 mm. And now you copy the moments of inertia also. Iz is, you see, 91813 into 10 to the power of 4 mm to the power of 4. Then plastic section modulus is 3510 into 10 cube mm cube. Then elastic section modulus, because you have to check that simply supported, right? 0.4 into 10 cube. And then the radius of gyration, this also is very important, Ry, I am writing here. So Ry for this case is 41.2, okay, centimeters, and Rz, the major axis, is 242. 242 mm. Sorry, this is all are the units are in mm only. Okay, so these are the things. So you copy all the details. And now what's the next step? What is that you have to do once you have copied all the details? Now what's the next step in the design?
Section classification.
So you have to find out the section classification. This is the most important thing. So you know all the steps. So epsilon anyway is 1 because 250. The width of the flange, so 210 by 2, that's the outstanding whatever, 105. So B by T of F. So this is 105 by 20.8. So this is a 5.04, which is less than 9.4. Then the depth web also you have to check. This is the depth of the web by thickness of the web 12. So this is a 43.2. So this is also less than 84. Now what type of section it is? What type of section? It is a plastic. Now whether shear buckling can occur here? Shear buckling. For shear buckling, what is this value?
67.
So now shear buckling is a possible here?
No, sir.
No, it is also not. No. Okay, so this also is less. So this also not required here, but web buckling, we have to do this one. So no shear buckling also. Okay, but this happens only in plate girders, not here. Okay, no need to worry in the beams. So it is a plastic. And now you have to calculate the design bending strength. So now here you followed, right? So if you see Duggal's textbooks, he has used the formulas actually. Now no need to use any formula also, easy way also is there. Now what is the effective length of the column? That is this one is, you see, 4000 mm. Now the Ry, the slenderness ratio, if you try to find out, say, so what is the slenderness ratio, the minimum slenderness ratio? So we have two slender, major axis and minor axis actually. So what is the minor axis slenderness ratio? 41.2 mm. So now, so your Ry is, you see, 41.2 mm. So now you find out the slenderness ratio, so which is a KL by R. So that is a 4000 by, you see, 41.2. Okay, so this if you try to calculate, how much is this value? Now 4000 by 41.2 is 97.0874 actual. So this is my value. Then you find out H by TF. Okay, sorry. Now you find out is, sorry. Now you find out H by TF. That is, the width of the flange to the thickness of the flange here. So what was the width of the flange was, the breadth of the flange, say, approximately, I think 210 was this one. Thickness of the flange was, you say, 20 point, H is 600 mm. I'm sorry. Okay, 600 mm is the, the whatever depth of the flange. H by T, and TF is the thickness of the flange. So thickness of the flange is, you see, 20 point, so approximately 8. So this also you find out, say, so 600 by, you see, 20.8 or whatever. So approximately this turns out to be how much? some 28 point, 8462 like that, you see, it comes out to be. Now you remember this value, slenderness ratio is 97. This is a 28.8462. So now you go to the steels, the IS 800. Okay. Now, so now in the IS 800 say, so there are, as already I told you, I will just open this. So if you open your IS 800, now, so IS 800 you open that bending this one. So we have two tables have been given to you. Okay, so it's very easy. No need to use any formula. So you can see this is a bending capacity beta ZP into FBD. So now we have to calculate FBD actual. Okay. So now for FBD to calculate, so you can use this formula or you can use the table itself. So for FBD calculation, the first thing you have to calculate is FCRB, that is extreme, the fiber bending, you see, compressive stress. Already the code is given. So this is a table 13 actual. Okay, this is for the bending stress. But now to find out bending stress, you require FCRB and then Fy. Fy is known to you, but FCRB is not known. To find out FCRB, this table 14 has been given actually. In the table 14 say, your y-axis is KL by R, that is the slenderness ratio, and your x-axis is H by TF. H is the that depth of the beam towards the thickness of the flange. Now in our problem say, what is KL by R? See, in our problem, KL by R is 97.0874 and H by TF is 28.8462. Now from this chart say, H by TF is 28, somewhere between 25 to 30 actual. Okay. Then this is 97. 97 means 90 to 100. Now what is approximately the value? So you are seeing here. You have 25, it is 344.42 for 90. Then for 130 combination is 270.9. So our values, it lies between these four you followed, right, the numbers, so that you can easily interpolate yourself actual. So from that say you can easily find out this FCRB. So what is FCRB approximately? So from these numbers you see 97 is more or less close to 100 actual, and 28 is more or less close to 30. So that means how much will be the value? Say 291, 270, 322, 344. So approximately you followed it. It lies between these four numbers actually. So anyway, for simplicity say, I will take it to be 270.9 itself for this problem, just approximately. Okay. So from that chart say, what is the table number? Now, table number 14 given in the code. So see table 14, I will get FCRB say approximately some 270 or whatever, I will take some value from that. But of course you have to, if you want exact value, you have to interpolate. 270 is the lowest actual, so it will be slightly 280, 290, something like that it will come. Okay, so this is my FCRB. Now once FCRB is known to you say, and now to find out FBD, you have to go for this chart actual. Okay, now here one more important step is you have to find out the the slenderness ratio, that is a non-dimensional slenderness ratio also. Okay, so that also let me just check this one. So you have to find out this lambda LT, that's the non-dimensional slenderness ratio, which is given by this beta P ZPZ Fy by using MCR. Okay, so this also is required but not required from the formulas. So we can directly go also, okay, without even calculating. We will come back to that also. Okay, so now your FCRB is 270, approximately 270 to 280. So you go to this chart say, and then here you have to assume alpha LT. Suppose if it is a rolled section, say you have to see which table, the BRA. This is for 0.49. This is for 0.21. So which is a rolled section means which table, A or B, you will see.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now from this table say you find out your FBD. Now what is our FCRB? See how much we have got for our problem? 270 or 280 approximately. Now here you see 300, 250, and 250 is our value. So now for 300 it is 163.
For 250 it is 152. So our number, you can interpolate between these two, some 163 or 152 or something like that. You can get your design, the bending stress. For this problem, if you interpolate, say, okay. So approximately this problem, FBD, say, from table 14 or whatever, 13A. FBD, if you do exactly, if you interpolate and all other things if you do, it turns out to be some 170.06 Newton per, the mm square. So this is your bending stress actually, which is very, very easy to calculate. So in the Duggal's books, instead of calculating in a, from the table, he has given the formula. So that also, if you want, you can calculate MCR, but the only thing is, you have to be very careful, how you are, what units and all those things you have to be careful. And it is straightforward only. L square, LT, GI, this is a torsional restraint plus is a pi square, EIW by L square, LT. All those things he has given. So if you substitute all those things, the critical bending moment turns out to be 1138.3 kilonewton meter actual. And then, so your lambda LT, say, for this problem, if you want to calculate, so substitute everything, it turns out to be 0.878 actual. Now, so what is, so the beam, whether this beam will buckle in lateral torsional buckling. So what is that limit there? So I showed you that figures, right? What is that when it will buckle? Lateral torsional buckling. What is the minimum slenderness ratio? You remember? Now, what is that limit? Slenderness ratio. Remember that table? Or that one? See, you remember that slide? Okay. So you remember that slide? Where was that one? So for slenderness, stocky beam, and that column, say, we told some, the important thing. So what is this? What is the limit here? Tell me, what is lambda LT, the limit for buckling?
0.4.
So if it is more than 0.4, then it will buckle. So now in our problem, what is lambda LT? See, our problem, this lambda LT turned out to be, 0.878 actual. So which means you followed it, it will buckle. So lateral torsional buckling is possible actual. That is the meaning of this statement. But no need to do all these things. So if you want, you can use the formulas which are, so many steps are there. Very, very easy only. But you have to be very careful. So if you are doing correctly or wrong, which is easy, going to the tables or going to the formulas? Table is very easy. So what you have to do for the table? Simple thing. You find out the slenderness ratio. Okay. You find out H by T of F, which anyway very, very easy. Just to go to the table 14, you calculate FCRB. Only thing what you may have to do is you may have to do some interpolation actually. Okay. Because for this exact value, you may not get this one. Linear interpolation, right? For this, for this I know. Now for this I have to find out actually some linear interpolation you can do, but it is a 2D, because it's a 2D interpolation whatever. So approximately you find out. Once you get that value, then you go to table 13A or 13B depending on rolled or welded section, and you know that FCRB and you know that FY. You just pick up the design bending stress actual. Okay, it's very, very straightforward. It's directly, you can calculate the bending this one. Now for the design bending capacity, say. So beta B. So you multiply everything, it turns out to be 597 kilonewton meter actual. So the maximum bending moment which is coming on the beam is a 550. So which means you see we are safe actual. Okay. Now the design shear strength you have to calculate. So Fy by root 3, H times or gamma m naught H into TW. So these are all straightforward. 944.75. And it is a maximum shear force is 200 kilonewtons. Okay. Then you can also find out, you see, the web buckling, this one, high shear, low shear, and all those things you have to do also. Now here also the question comes whether you have to do web buckling thing you have to check or you don't need to check. See the web buckling say, what is the criteria to check for web buckling? It should be shear buckling. So anyway, your value is less than 67. Now you have to check whether it is. No. So for high shear, what is the value? See, maximum shear force is 200. Now your shear capacity is 944. So 0.6 times VD means what happens? So 0.6 of, so 9 you followed, right? 9 6 are you follow the high shear or it is a low shear case? See what is a point? See 0.6 times VD. That means 0.6 times 944 says turns out to be 566 actually. High shear or low shear?
Low shear.
Low shear. You have to check or you don't need to check now?
Not needed.
Not needed, but because it's a lateral torsional buckling, right? There is a chance of LTB. So generally what happens is if you are a good designer, say, people check web buckling also. Anyway, web will not buckle, but still people check for LTB. Suppose if it is laterally supported beams, then this may not be required also. Okay, so you find out. So other steps are all straightforward. So which you can easily calculate using yourself. Okay. So this problem is already there in Duggal. So just see that one and you can calculate. So Duggal has explained by using all the formulas. Without formula also, simplest way, you can go to these tables and then also you can calculate these numbers. Okay. So with this, so this is how we can do for the beams. Now similarly, once you are expert in beams, say you can do a lot of small things will be there, like you say purlins, say. Okay, so how do we design these purlins? Small things, straightforward, same concept only. The maximum bending moment, maximum shear force, or maximum. But for purlins or other things, a wind also, if it is there, then you have to do this horizontal. Then 2 bending moments will be there. Okay, apart from 1 bending moment. So all the steps are same. Okay, this one, then this one, the trial section modulus say. So you can assume something and you can do, but there is some formulas are there actually. Okay, Gaillard formula or something to find out initial estimate of plastic section modulus for purlins. So no need to use this formula. You can assume something trial, just a trial section you can do, and you can check the capacities in both the directions. Say Z direction, then in Y direction also. It is a biaxial bending kind of thing. And the interaction, so this you have to find out. So this is your final design variable, like in Z direction, in Y direction, say it should be less than 1, then it means your purlin is safe actually. Okay, and then this is the last thing is the deflection criteria. So beams it was L by 300, but for purlins it is, you see, L by 180. Okay, so these are all the small the things comes like a tributaries, so if you know how to design a beam, you can design a purlin, you can do whatever you like. And if it is a biaxial bending, say, so you have to do other direction, and then less than or equal to 1. So there is interaction in both the directions. Okay, so with this we close our design of beams actually, as far as this course is concerned. Okay, so before we go to the next one, this is a checklist. Tell me what's the first thing answer. What's the most design variable for beams?
Section modulus.
Excellent. No, what section modulus? Plastic or elastic? Which one you have to? Which is the most variable? Section modulus only, but plastic or elastic, or both? Now, which one you are using in the design? ZP or ZE? Plastic we are using, but ZE also is required actually. Suppose if it is a semi-compact section, say, then you may have to use ZE. Now, how many modes of failures are there for beams? Now, how many failure modes are there broadly?
Buckling, shear, and moment.
That one is bending. You followed.
bending mode. Then we had of course a shear capacity, that is fine, but broadly speaking I showed you, right, the slides, buckling, whatever you told. Then the last one is local failures, that means web crippling, web buckling and others. So 3 modes of failure are there, majority for the beams. Now what is shape factor? Now what do you mean by shape factor?
ZP by ZE.
ZP by ZE. What does it represent physically? Suppose shape factor is 1.5. What does it tells you?
50% additional capacity.
50% additional. Excellent. Now what is low shear, high shear?
Less than 0.6 VD and greater than 0.6.
Excellent. Now what does a 0.6 comes? How this 0.6 number came in that calculations?
1 by root 3.
Excellent. 1 by root 3 means it is not pointing 0.58 something. If you round it off, it turns out to be 0.6. Okay. Now what happens to bending capacity in high shear? Decreases or increases compared to low shear?
Decreases.
I think only you are only answering, Yashvita. What about others? Let me see who else are there. Others are there. Utkarsh, I think, is there, no? Kishore, Shankar, many people are there, no? Mihir Chawla. See, all are there. No, Mihir Chawla is there. Kishore is there. One first roll number Takshit. Devasani Sriraga. All of you are there, right? Now you please see. Now what happens to, can a beam buckle?
Yes, sir.
Why? See, why beam buckles if somebody asks you?
So because
Compression flash.
Compression, tension, so that is very good. Okay, so anything in compression can buckle. Now what is lateral torsional buckling? Why do torsion comes here? Why we don't call as lateral buckling actually? Why we are calling as lateral torsional buckling? Now, why torsion comes here?
The upper flange buckles, the compression flange buckles, and the beam becomes twisted.
So because a tension flange doesn't buckle, so you have non-uniform say. So that's why we call it lateral torsional buckling. So both are combined here. Now what variables quantify lateral torsional buckling? So lateral torsional buckling depends on what variables. That formula you remember, MCR formula. What are the important ingredients in that formula?
Torsional rigidity.
Excellent. GJ, then? See that formula I told you, right? See, if you want to find out critical bending moments, it is a product of something, no? Torsional rigidity multiplied by?
Bending rigidity.
Excellent. So EI into GJ, you followed. Or sometimes GJ plus we can write warping rigidity also. So these are the 3 variables. Now what is destabilizing load?
Load applied at top of flange.
Top of the flange. Now how many buckling curves are there in the code for beams?
2.
2. Excellent. Okay. Welded, rolled. Now what is the slenderness ratio after which LTB becomes significant? Where is that junction? Short beam or long beam, slender beam or whatever. What is the slenderness ratio? Non-dimensional slenderness ratio.
0.4.
Just now we solved it, 0.4. And now what is a non-dimensional slenderness ratio? What is the meaning of this one? Non-dimensional slender. How do we calculate lambda LT? It is square root of, you remember that formula, MP by, you followed, right? This expression is, that is a non-dimensional effective slenderness ratio. Okay. And now what is the criteria for shear buckling? How do you check whether the buckle, your web will buckle shear or not?
Now, for shear buckling, what's the criteria? No.
D by TW less than 67.
67, excellent. Whether web buckles in low shear case?
No.
No, as per the code, not required. Okay, but if it is lateral torsional buckling is also there, so then see already the beam is having LTB. This problem is there. Now, although it may be low shear, but you have to check as a good designer. Okay, but as far as the course is this is concerned, if it doesn't satisfy D by T 67 and this one, you no required to do this one. Now, what's the difference between web buckling and web crippling? Are they same, or what's the difference between these two?
More force is required for crippling.
No, that is fine. But where buckling, web buckling happens? So where do we take the width? The next one. No. That width, you know, for calculations. Where do for web buckling? Where do we take the width?
Center of
Center, that the neutral axis. Okay. Crippling means.
junction between web and flange.
Junction between the web, that is where the crippling happens actually. Okay, so anyway, so these are the some of the questions, so if you are understood, that means you are doing fine, all of you. Okay, so anyway, we will close this, and the next class, I think this week we may have a tutorial, then we will go to plate girders, which is anyway extension of beams itself, and it is very easy, but the design becomes a very lengthy design will be there for plate girder, because shear buckling becomes very the important, that D by T say it will not be 67, so we have other kind of issues. So fine. Now, so if you have any questions, you can ask.